Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Access Minnesota brings you the newsmakers and the stories that shape our everyday lives, with analysis from University of Minnesota faculty experts.
The sight and smell of flowers is always one of the best parts of spring. But gardens, especially in urban areas, can fulfill other important roles besides beauty. Gardens attract vital species like birds, butterflies, and bees, and they can serve as a food source for communities with little access to fresh produce. This month on Access Minnesota, we explore the many benefits of gardening and learn how communities can come together and start their own gardens. Julie Weisenhorn is the State Master Gardener Program Director at the University of Minnesota. Julie, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thanks, Jim. I'm happy to be here.
The Master Gardener Program currently consists of more than 2,200 volunteers to help gardens and gardeners across the state of Minnesota. Tell us more about the program and the kind of work the volunteers do.
Well, the volunteers are first and foremost volunteers, and I think that that's a really important feature of the program. They want to learn more about horticulture and gardening education themselves. And then also they want to give back to their communities in some way that's meaningful to them and that they can enjoy doing. And so they will apply to their program, their local program, and then go through a kind of a recruitment application process and then register for our core course class, and they'll spend about 48 hours in the classroom, or they'll do a combination of online and classroom time. We give them that option because of people's busy lives. And once they've completed that, they are considered interns, and they will volunteer at least 50 hours in the first year as an intern and do a whole bunch of different activities. And then after that first year, when they've completed that, they're considered active and certified master gardeners. And their interests range from youth programming and youth education. Also, community gardens are a huge area that master gardeners really help, and they'll come out and help them with understanding the soil and moisture requirements and plant selection. Sometimes they'll teach community ed classes. Might do a community ed class on composting or on beneficial insects. And then also they might be talking about perennials or native plants, rain gardens. It runs the gamut. They do all sorts of things. They write articles for papers. They're on television shows and do Access TV and local shows and work at the state fair, and there's just about anything that a master gardener, I mean, all different things that these volunteers would like to do.
What are some of the benefits of having a garden?
Well, I think one of the things about a garden is just having that green space that's yours. And then also I think it's for growing food, fruits and vegetables, and knowing where those fruits and vegetables come from. And also for families with kids, it's teaching kids where food comes from and how plants grow and the whole science behind that.
How do you encourage people who have no experiences with plants to start gardening?
Well, the first thing is don't be afraid to make a mistake. We all do. Experiment. Give it a shot. If you like to grow carrots, try growing carrots. Don't start anything too big. Start small. Sometimes it's just some containers on your patio or your deck. You know, don't be afraid to ask for help. The Extension website has a lot of great resources, publications, and links to our soil test lab, as well as links to the Department of Horticultural Science and our fruit breeders, and lots of different information for people. We even have diagnostic tools that will help people determine what's wrong with their plant, what insect is this, and is this plant a weed?
What are some of the common difficulties that novice gardeners encounter?
I think the first thing is that they don't take the time to understand their soil. The soil is like a foundation of your garden. It's just like the foundation of your house. And if you don't spend the time properly amending it with compost and understanding, loosening the soil up, it's going to be, a tough row to hoe to keep going and to have a successful garden. So taking the time to amend your soil and understand, about adding compost to that, that's probably the biggest thing that people do. And even experienced gardeners don't do that.
What are some of the more common mistakes that you see beginning gardeners make?
I think that they try too big. They start too big. And so they probably need to start with something smaller, like containers, or start with a small plot in their yard, and then take the time to amend their soil with compost.
How much time do you actually need to create and maintain a garden?
I think it's up to the gardener. Some people really like to spend a lot of time in their garden, and they'll look at every aspect of it. They'll try to understand all the insects. They'll try different kinds of plants. They'll try different kinds of growing techniques, vertical or walls. And then some people just want to have a garden that looks great. And so they'll put in some annuals, and boy, that's fine with them. So it really is up to the individual how much time they want to spend.
And how much money do people typically have to invest in a startup garden?
Well, if you ask my husband, too much for me, but but actually, I don't think it's that much. I think, again, a garden can be big and a garden can be small. And so people can start with a well-drained pot and some good soil from the garden center and try a favorite plant and just start with that.
What are some of the gardening trends that you've noticed recently?
Edible landscape has been one of the biggest trends, and I think that's tied tightly to community gardening. There are over 130 community gardens in the metro area, and lots of different programs such as Gardening Matters and Minnesota Green through our State Horticulture Society that work with the community gardens. And a lot of people, as our population has grown in the Twin Cities, in the metro areas and the highly populated areas, people are looking for ways that they can grow their own produce. I think also this edible landscape where people are combining edible plants with their ornamental plants is a big trend right now too.
What are some of the more popular flowers and plants that you'll find in Minnesota gardens?
Well, endless summer hydrangea has been a very popular plant, and it came out a few years ago. It's the blue hydrangea. It's also a bit of a frustration for people sometimes because they want that blossom to stay blue, and you need to treat it with aluminum sulfate in order to do that. Also, some of the university bred plants, we get lots of questions from consumers and gardeners who want a particular blueberry or strawberry or azalea that's been bred by the University of Minnesota, which is reassuring for us as a department of plant breeders that people are wanting our product.
Do you know any people who have an exclusive U of M garden?
No, I don't know that, but down in our display garden we actually have a section called the Minnesota Garden, and all of the plants there are bred by University of Minnesota or also Minnesota breeders such as Bailey Nursery.
Are there any particular plant species that grow best in Minnesota?
Well, native plants are probably some of the most reliable plants to grow, but we also have some plants that have been bred as native cultivars. And so these are plants such as our blue heaven grass that was bred by Dr. Mary Meyer, which is a wonderful, very hardy ornamental grass. And it's an original, it's a child of the little blue stem, which is one of our native grasses here. So native plants do very well. They're adapted to our climate changes. They're adapted to our very cold winters, very dry summers. They do extremely well. They improve the soil. They have very complex root systems. And that's a very positive trend in gardening right now too.
What are some of the best resources for gardening help?
Well, I have to say the Extension website is one of the best. And we spend a lot of time being very thorough as best we can to particularly address needs in the communities and things that we hear. We've spent a lot of time writing publications, our Extension educators writing publications about fruits and vegetables and edibles in particular. Lawns are also a big mystery to people, and so we spend a lot of time writing about caring for lawns and how you can do that with low inputs. That's a great site. Again, it has diagnostic tools on it. It's got links to other sites. It's a great first place to go to reach a lot of different resources around the nation.
What are some of the more common questions that master gardeners are asked?
Well, it's interesting, particularly after the state fair, to see the kinds of questions that were asked. And they're always about tomatoes. We have a lot of questions about tomatoes, a lot of questions about insect identification, also a lot of questions about university releases and the best choices of plants, proper plant selection, lots of lawn questions. And last year and even this year, we're starting to have Japanese beetle questions. People wanting to know what they can do to prevent the Japanese beetles that they had last year.
What is the strangest gardening question that you personally have ever been asked?
Well, this year we had a lot of questions about rhubarb. And with the late freeze, we had a lot of questions about whether people could eat their rhubarb because the leaves contain oxalic acid. And it can work its way down into the edible part of the plant, when the plant has suffered some frost damage. And so we had a lot of questions about that, and I have never in my life had questions about rhubarb about that. So I had to do some digging and produce some publication information for master gardeners. But that was very odd questions.
Julie Weisenhorn, State Master Gardener Program Director at the University of Minnesota. Thanks so much for joining us on Access Minnesota.
Thanks, Jim.
Community gardens bring together fellow gardeners and provide land for those who have no space at home to garden. When Access Minnesota returns, we visit Gardening Matters, a nonprofit organization designed to promote community gardens.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages.